This happened maybe 10 years ago, when I was in my early 30s. I was standing in line at a local pharmacy to get my prescriptions. This is a small town, and I'm a regular there, so they know me by sight. I was behind a couple of other people in line, and there were a couple of people behind me. I kept feeling a tickle in my hair in the back of my head, but every time I looked behind me, the guy there was a few steps back, looking at the floor. This happened several times by the time I was at the front of the line. The pharmacist told me she wanted to talk to me about my medication in the consultation room they had at the time, since converted into a bathroom. I thought this was weird, because we both knew I had been on this medication for years, and would be for life. Nothing new. I get back to the room and close the door, and she comes in from the door at the other side, which leads to the pharmacy. She told me that the man behind me had been stepping forward, sticking his nose in my hair and smelling, before stepping back and looking at the floor. This shocked me pretty badly, as this is such weird behavior, especially in my little town. The pharmacy staff insisted on having me wait there until the guy was distracted by another pharmacy employee, and they had a security guard walk me to my car and watch me drive off to make sure I was gone before Hair Sniffer came out and saw what I was driving and what direction I was going. I still use this pharmacy, and some of the same people still work there. I will always be grateful that they took the initiative to make sure I was safe that day. This happened 2 nights ago, so I'm still replaying it over and over in my head. I thought this would be a good place to share. I'm a pretty predictable person with a predictable schedule, so I'm not sure if this was some random occurrence or if someone knew my nightly routine. I'm a 35-year-old woman. My husband Rob gets up for work hours before me, so he goes to bed before I do. I usually get to bed a few hours after he does, around the same time every night. I turn off the lights and the TV in the living room. I take my dog to the back door to let her out. She's tiny, old, and poses zero threat to anyone. The door leads to a large deck outside. Off to the right of the deck is a few steps down and a small path to the gate, which we always keep chained and locked. Every single night before opening the door, I peek out of the window right next to it, without disturbing the blinds, and flip on the deck light. I never expect anyone to be there, and we've never had a problem with anyone trespassing or trying to break in. It's just something I do every night, kinda like peeking behind the shower curtain before I pee. I know no one is there, but if I don't check, then this is going to be the time that there is actually someone hiding there, you know? Hey, I watch a ton of horror movies, and it's pitch black outside at night where I live. So, a few nights ago, I got ready for bed, went to the back door with my dog slowly following behind me, and peeked out the window. I flipped on the light, and my heart jumped into my throat when I saw a skinny, dirty guy in his 30s or 40s standing off to the side of the door, facing it. I see him raise his arm up and hold a screwdriver above his head as soon as the light went on, preparing for someone to open the door. I screamed, "Rob! Get up! Get the gun!" as loud as I could, which startled the guy, and he jumped over the rail of the deck, even though he was right next to the stairs, and ran. My husband ran out of our bedroom with his gun. He called the police, and they showed up within 5 minutes. They drove around trying to find the guy, but no luck. The guy broke the lock on our gate to get in. He also pried open the back screen door, which we always keep locked as well. If I would have opened the door without looking out first, I might be dead. I don't know if I caught the guy trying to break in, or if he was waiting for me to open the door like I do every night. Either way, it was fucking terrifying. My parents are buying us an outdoor security camera this week as an early birthday present for Rob. In 2006, I was a college student at ASU. I lived in an off-campus apartment on the ground floor, and it was a block off a major street here in Phoenix called Baseline. These details are important. In the summer of 2006, Phoenix, Arizona was plagued by 2 serial killers. One was the Phoenix shooter, who ended up being a team of 2 guys randomly shooting people, and the other was the Baseline killer, a rapist and murderer. Having 2 serial killers put the entire city on edge, and everyone was talking about it. I even saw articles in the Time or Newsweek about the situation. So, the fall 2006 semester had just started. Now, you may have heard this, but Phoenix is hot in August. it would get stuffy in my apartment. So I'd leave the window cracked a little because the morning air is nice. The blinds provided visual cover. Anyways, one morning, a strange sound woke me up. It was the crack of dawn, like 4:45 a.m., and the sun was barely coming up. It was a sound of someone lightly tapping on the window, and it seemed intentional. In my tired state, I figured it could be a bird, or some branches, or something trivial. Tap, and then silence. After about 90 seconds of nothing, the tapping returned. And it was absolutely purposeful. I was positive it was a human producing this noise. I thought it was my boyfriend, who thought it was cute to try and scare me sometimes. I decided to be a bit of a brat and make him wait, but I was also getting really angry. How dare he pull a prank when I'm trying to sleep? This is just like him. I'm gonna give him a piece of my mind about disturbing my sleep like this. Tap. At a certain point, I got up to get a glass of water, still being in the mindset of wanting to annoy my stupid boyfriend who thought this would be funny. But I saw some movement through the slit in the blinds, and I marched over and yanked at the blinds so I could see. Definitely not my boyfriend. I said very loudly, "What the fuck?" He sort of seemed taken aback by my anger, but only slightly. The man I saw will be with me forever, or more specifically, his eyes, and the feeling they gave me were insanely creepy. Honestly, words cannot do justice to how terrifying his eyes were. They looked like black orbs with no white in them. Absolutely predatory. When I see pictures of Ted Bundy or Charles Manson, that's exactly what he looked like. Even if you saw a picture of how they looked, it's different when you experience it in person. It totally floored me. Something about this man was profoundly wrong. He was crouched down, like an umpire. He had on dark pants, a dark purple shirt, and a dark Nike hat. He had dark skin. I thought he was Hispanic, but I later found out he was a light-skinned black guy. You'll find out how I learned his name later. Anyways, after I yelled, "What the fuck?" at him, he whispers to me,
"Can I talk to you?"
If you want to know how insanely creepy that is to hear, just whisper that sentence out loud to yourself right now. It still sends chills down my spine when I think of how that sounded. His hands subtly moved toward his waist. I later learned that he would blitz attack his victims, and he probably had a gun. All that separated us was a mesh screen. Now, this is about a 3-second interaction at this point. For some reason, I thought of Ted Bundy and how he pretended to be crippled to target his victims. I thought of my mom telling me not to be nice to strangers. Don't be afraid to be a bitch. My thinking wasn't as calculated as all that, but it was more the nano-processing of how to deal with the situation. So, when he whispered that, I started yelling at him. "Hell no! Get the fuck out of here, douchebag!" I shut the window angrily and locked it. I can't overemphasize how incredibly irritated I was that this person had the audacity to disturb my precious sleep. I laid back down and wondered if I had been too mean. What if he needed help? But that didn't really make sense. Why would he be, tapping and whispering if he was truly in trouble? I decided he was a creep after all. I was too annoyed to get back to sleep, but I sort of laid back down. I told my roommate about an hour later, and she sort of jokingly asked if it could have been the baseline killer. When she said that, my heart sank. His face looked exactly like it did in the police sketches that were on billboards everywhere. The only problem is that those billboards showed him with dreads, and the man at my window had no dreads. Apparently, he was some sort of disguise artist who'd wear wigs. Updating the police sketch would have been a nice move, but they didn't. I called the Phoenix police, and the detective I talked to agreed that it sounded like his MO. The suspect would say something to throw off his target, then he'd blitz attack. The detective said that my angry response probably made me seem like too much of a hassle, and moved on. The only problem was that I thought the guy looked Hispanic, and the detective said many witnesses described him as black. I thought they might want to come out and try for samples or surveillance video or something, but I didn't hear back from the detective. My parents freaked out. They got us knives, pepper spray, and put up signs. Edit. Some people asked why I didn't get a gun. I can't remember why I didn't at the time, but I remember it being something I was open to when my dad brought it up. We learned another tenant had complained that same morning. I never learned the details, but this idiot was apparently going around the damn complex trying to find a target. The stupid apartment wouldn't let us out of our lease, so we moved to a second-floor apartment, right above our old unit. Anyways, on September 4th, 2006, they arrested Marc Goudot. I think the detective didn't call me back because they were days away from arresting Goudot. When I saw his mugshot, I was sick, but also relieved. He was absolutely the guy outside my window. To me, he looked like he could be Hispanic. You can judge for yourself. He's on death row in Arizona now. His wife tried to mount some campaign to show that the police were framing him or something. On a personal level, it would certainly make for an interesting coincidence if this poor innocent man who they framed was also whispering like a creep and tapping on my window. The other cool thing about this story is that I had a really bad eating disorder at the time, and about 8 months after this happened, I got in solid recovery. I never would have experienced how wonderful life could be if the slightest thing would have changed that morning in 2006. I can't think of something more scarier than a serial killer tapping on your window. That actually happened to me. And if it happens to you, just scare them right back. Don't be afraid to be downright rude to someone who's injecting themselves into your space. It could save your life if you're not afraid to throw your weight around and tell someone to fuck off. Trust yourself. You can still be a kind and generous person and still tell someone to fuck off. Thank you for your time and attention. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want funny stories, you can go over to my partner channel, Fun with Failure, where he does funny encounters and neckbeard and stuff like that. Stay safe out there, darlings.